Hello, everyone. This brief lecture is going to be on showing, not telling, and the value that rule plays in your creative writing. So, as mentioned in the first module of this class, show, don't tell is the most important rule of storytelling, poetry writing, and playwriting. I, in fact, think this rule is important for any kind of writing. In fact, when I teach my composition class, I often run through this same rule, and hopefully, by the end of this lecture, you'll understand why. So, what does show, don't tell actually mean? The way that I like to explain it is imagine you, for whatever reason, close your eyes and you hear your close friend yell, "Oh my gosh," or "I can't believe that happened," or "Wow, that was insane." You open your eyes, you ask your friend what happened, and they proceed to tell you, "Oh, well, this person was really upset and they showed that they were upset, and it was just a really intense moment." For most of us, that would be a very disappointing summary, mostly because we want to experience what we just missed, right? It's the same thing when you ask someone to tell you what you missed in class, maybe. You don't necessarily, well, maybe class is a bad example, but tell me what I missed about a date that I was on, like a group hangout that I was a part of. We don't want to just be told what happened. First, we watched a movie, then we walked 3 blocks. We want to experience it for ourselves. And that's exactly what showing, not telling means. And so this is a quote from Janet Burroway where she says, this is from Burroway and French. She says effective fiction, but we can say effective fiction, poetry, and playwriting reaches its readers by reproducing the emotional impact of an experience. So, showing, not telling is the idea that I want to experience something. I don't want to be told how to feel. I want to actually feel it for myself. And so, sure, you can tell us a character is in love. You can tell us a character is really upset, but that's not the same as showing your readers what this love looks like, showing your readers what this sadness looks like. And a really great analogy that I read a while back is when you might go for a job interview, your employer always says experience is different from knowledge, right? So it's not enough to know about certain concepts. It's more important that you have experienced these concepts, right? And so the same thing is true for any kind of creative writing. Yes, it's great that you can tell your reader something, but it's much more important and much more impactful if you can show your reader or share an experience with your reader. And another way to think about this is think about your own experience of reading plays, poems, watching television, watching film. Um, when you watch a film, do you watch it so that someone can get on screen and say, "I am sad"? Or do you watch film so that you can see someone tell their friend, "My insides feel like they're crawling with earthworms," right? In one instance, you're being told something and you might not actually have any emotional attachment to what's happening because you're just being told it. And in this second example, you're being shown how someone is feeling. And so you are more likely to connect and actually experience this sadness because the sadness is being described in a very specific way. And here's another example. She was mad is telling. she blew her hair away from her face, all the while wishing she could just shave her head, that's showing. And I'm hoping what these examples are also indicating is showing is really important because it gives specificity to abstractions or things that everyone thinks about in different ways. So when I say, for example, love, we all have a different image in our head. And that's why showing is so important, so that you can show us specifically what kind of love you're talking about. And so here's an example of showing, not telling, actually working in non-creative writing. And I give this example here because one of the things you'll be required to do in this class is also talk about the things that we're reading, perform analysis on things that we're reading. And so showing and not telling becomes important there too. So for example, if you read something and you write the main character in the story has anger problems, you're telling me that the main character in the story has anger problems. Okay, that's, I guess, important to know, but I'm not really sure where you got this impression. I'm not really sure what specifically you mean when you say anger problems, right? So there are a lot of things that I'm still left wondering. And then in the second example, the main character rolls her eyes when her husband returns home from war. Though subtle, this reaction suggests she might not be as enthused about returning to her old life as the narrator wants us to believe. So here I'm actually specifically talking about a moment in the story, and just a heads up, this is about a story called What You Left in the Ditch by Amy Bender. It's a beautiful short story that I wanted us to read, but we just didn't have the time. So yeah, this is pointing to a specific part of the story and talking about what's happening in that specific part of the story. And here now you're showing me instead of telling me. And now I understand what you mean with anger. I also understand how the story is showing this character's anger or frustration. So again, showing, not telling is an important rule in all kinds of writing. And here's something, if you'd like to offer a comment on this video, think about how you might show that a character is happy. How might you show love in a poem? Because this next unit we're going to be covering is poetry. So start thinking about how you can show these things. And again, you can offer this as a comment down below. And again, I just want to really emphasize the importance of showing. If we didn't really follow this rule, showing, not telling, we wouldn't have songs like this by Beyonce, in which she's showing us what confidence is. She's showing us what strength is. She's not telling us, right? So imagine if instead of these two stanzas, we just had, I am strong, I am confident. That wouldn't be as great of a song as the one that we have in front of us. So again, me trying to really emphasize the importance of showing, not telling. So if I've convinced you that showing is important in all kinds of writing, the next thing I need you to understand is this whole semester, we're going to be looking at craft elements that essentially help you show instead of tell. And so we're going to be talking about image. Image can help you show and not tell. We're going to be talking about character. We're going to be talking about dialogue, setting, and scene. Within those conversations, we'll also be talking about action and point of view, but it's really important for you to hear that we're not going to be covering all the methods of showing simply because we don't have enough time. However, if you choose to take another creative writing class, I'm sure you'll cover much more than we're able to this term. And then this is just, there's a wonderful essay by Peter Rock called A Telling That Shows. In fact, I might link it on our page. And he explains that showing is really important, but there are some times when you do just need to tell the reader what's going on. And so there are important instances where telling is necessary. One is to help your reader understand time. So rather than, having to go through the difficult process of showing us that it's a Monday or a Tuesday, it might just be more worthwhile to say it was Tuesday, right? The other thing for those of you that write fantasy or sci-fi, often if you're dealing with a world in which things are very different from the way that we understand the world that we live in, it is useful to just tell us certain things. Like, if there are robots that help you wash dishes, just telling us, she put her dish in the robot and the robot cleaned it. That doesn't even make sense, but hopefully you understand what I'm saying. And the other important reason why you might want to tell instead of show is if you're dealing with transitions or time jumps. So rather than having to show us that 30 years have passed, you can just tell us 30 years later. And this should kind of make sense because if you think about shows, television shows or movies, often the one time you'll see them break out of the showing and sort of put text on the screen is when they're telling us that time has passed, right? Either it's just like all white text on a black screen, it says 30 years later, or if you think of like Mission Impossible, on the bottom right hand corner will just be sort of the place that we're in, right? So the idea is, in that instance, it's not really worth going through the process of showing you where you are and like keeping it a mystery. Instead, I'd rather just tell you so I can show you other things. Another way to think about this is you're really interested in showing your readers things that will help them experience an emotion, right? Experience a feeling. So if there are things that are feelings or emotions that you want your readers to experience, show it. If there are things that are not really about emotions, more just about logistics, then maybe you want to tell it. And that's it for Show Don't Tell. I look forward to talking to you next about imagery and poetry.